from digital address GA0993341. This is Joy News at 6 with me, Bernice Abubeidu-Lansa. This bulletin is on Joy 99.7 and hits 103.9 FM in Accra and Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. Affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. Around the world, it's at myjoyonline.com. Coming up, newborn babies and pregnant women continue to die in island community of Fana in the Greater Accra region simply because they have to travel long hours in a canoe to access health care.
4 people lost their baby on the way. 4 people lost their baby and 2 have lost their life. There is no clinic here.
We have details shortly. Also in this package, NDC flag bearer John Mahama jabs Ekufuado's administration over its failure to rein in students who went on rampage in the ongoing Wasi.
If you respect the law and decency, you will follow the right channels to seek redress. You do not send party apparatchiki to rain insults and terror on people who hold views that you do not find complementary to government.
Flag bearer of the NDC, John Mahama, is also questioning government silence over what he says is persecution of Christian leaders in Ghana in business.
Bank of Ghana directs new staff of all financial institutions must be vetted by the police as it moves to check rising fraud cases. That's in 15 minutes.
Also, Citizens Movement Against Corruption demands dismissal of Zongo Development Fund CEO after he admitted to breaching procurement law. It's a pleasure to have you. The details now. Half a dozen newly born babies and mothers have died in the last 6 years in an island community of Fana in the Gas South municipality of the Greater Accra region. Now, that's according to residents of the community that's trapped in between the sea and the lagoon with no access to health care. Other inhabitants and pregnant women continue to die and deliver in canoes because they have to travel for over 1 hour in paddled canoes to access health care. Joy News' Henry Kwesibedu has more in the following report.
35-year-old Kwame recounting how her wife in 2018 delivered their first child in a canoe and route a chief's compound miles away from the island community.
I went fishing when my wife was in labor. She delivered on her way to the hospital in a canoe. The hospital is very far from where we live.
His wife is lucky to have survived. Rosemary Dasi is also a resident here. Her water broke in the dead of the night last year. With no canoes operating in the night and no traditional birth attendants, she had to wait for 4 hours to get a canoe, enduring severe pains and putting her life and the baby on the edge.
It started around 1 a.m. I felt funny, and my husband called his mother and grandmother. They confirmed my time was due. The canoe came around 5 a.m.
Rosemary delivered, but she does not want to relive the same experience.
It was a horrifying experience.
Health personnel visit the community occasionally to provide life-saving health services like immunizing their babies. Half a dozen newly born babies have died in the past 6 years because they could not get to a healthcare facility early enough.
That was Henry Kwesibedu's report read to you. Let's take you to Bonsa in the Western region where there's continued pollution of the Bonsa River. Children in the community have for years been swimming in the water body which passes through their town. But now chemicals from mining activities have changed the color of the river, prompting fears that the health of children could be at risk. John News' Justice Bedu has more.
This is ground zero for Ghana's battle against illegal mining, the Bonsa River in the western regional town of Esuoso. Even from drone visuals, you can see locally assembled dredging machines digging up for gold from the waterbed. All the waste goes back into the river. And to get the gold, the miners use mercury, a poisonous chemical that could cause long-term damage to the body.
At first, there was no galamsey, but as many people got into galamsey for the lack of work, the look of the water deteriorated.
Several kilometers downstream is the small village of Bonsa. In Esuoso, the river is a mining den, but here it is a swimming pool mainly for children.
We usually swim when we are feeling hot. The current look of the water sometimes makes us sick. Sometimes We find blood in our urine.
With COVID lockdowns and school closures, these school children take to the river to while away time.
In the past, the water was so clear that we could even see ourselves when we dive under it. My dream is that we can swim and do so well that we can even compete at the international level in swimming. But the state of the river makes us sick.
Justice Beidou with that report. This is your election headquarters, and flag bearer of the opposition NDC, John Dramani Mahama, has taken a swipe at the Akufo-Addo administration's handling of recent happenings at senior high schools. Some students in various schools across the country went on rampage, vandalizing school property, assaulting examination officials over strict invigilation. 14 of them were sacked by the GES, but the decision was reversed following an intervention by President Akufo-Addo. Well, during a courtesy call on the National Chief Imam to formally introduce his running mate, Mr. Mahama said his government will improve the quality of teaching and learning.
We will improve the free SHS so that our children will not think that it's an entitlement for them to cheat in exams. If you prepare the children well, they are not going to fight with an invigilator because he's preventing them from cheating in exams.
His running mate, Professor Nana Jenopoku-Agyeman, blamed government for the seeming decline in discipline in senior high schools.
Since when did we have in this country, children normally come from exam and say, yeah, it was a hard paper. But when? What was the last time ever that we saw so many children in so many schools misbehaving because the paper was hard? So what is going wrong? That is a record we need them to come and defend.
Professor Nana Jenopoku-Agyeman is running mate of the NDC's flag bearer, John Mahama. Meanwhile, the NDC flag bearer has also questioned government silence over what he calls persecution of Christian leaders. He says this emboldens party foot soldiers to extend the attacks to others. Some pastors, including founder of Perez Chapel, Bishop Charles Jinasari, have been attacked for criticizing government. Listen.
Indeed, I've received complaints from men of God to call government to order, and it's unfair treatment and sometimes targeted attacks on them for speaking out against injustice. You do not send party apparatchiki to rain insults and terror on people who hold views that you do not find complementary to government. When the appointing authority turns a blind eye to persecution, it only emboldens certain elements working for government to extend their terror to others.
You heard that the NDC's flag bearer, John Mahama. The National Chief Imam, Sheikh Usman Nuhu Sharubutu, has called on Ghanaians to individually play their part in ensuring that the 2020 general election is devoid of violence. Vandalism and killings have characterized the just-ended voter registration exercise.
Election is approaching. Whatever you can do to contribute to a very peaceful election, I encourage you to do, so that we will live in peace.
The Chief Imam spoke when the NDC's flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, formally introduced his running mate. To some other stories now, the Citizens Movement Against Corruption wants CEO of the Zongo Development Fund, Arafat Suleimana Abdullahi, relieved of his post after he admitted to breaching procurement law. A Corruption Watch investigation a Corruption Watch investigation uncovered the CEO engaged in alleged procurement malpractices in the purchase of goods, services, and works worth 5 million cedis. The management of the Zongo Development Fund also allegedly superintended over procurement breaches, including the inflation of contract figures and breaching of the entity's head threshold. Speaking on PM Express, co-founder of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, Adam Senanu, said that Zongo Development Fund CEO must not only be fired, but must be also made to face the full rigors of the law.
The government ought to be stepping in to act. If the presidency is up to its game, you should remove this guy immediately, indicate that the investigative bodies should quickly complete their investigations, submit reports for which the necessary sanctions. If he's cleared, fine. If he's not, the law should follow its course, and that should be done quickly.
You heard there Adam Senanu, he is co-founder of the